This house in Malmesbury in South Africa's Western Cape is a mirror image of an English Victorian home. The builder, only known as Mr. Cotton, fell in love with the house exactly like this 7,000 miles away and more than a century ago and decided to build a replica at home. This is it, the Von Elk house, built in 1896. The builder recreated every brick painstakingly.
By the end of the 19th century, there was a guy from Malmesbury called Mr. Kotze, who went overseas to England, and he came across this a house, a beautiful Victorian house, and he said, that's the house that I want to build in South Africa. So he bought the plans of the house, got the authorization by the municipality to build it, and shipped all the building materials from England to South Africa for about 7,000 pounds at that time, for which amount you could build a church. It was then built, but he never lived in it.
There is only one other Von Elk style home in South Africa, so owning one of them is being custodian to a piece of real estate history. It has passed through a number of restoration and hands since then.
The house brought us to Malmesbury, and we visited Malmesbury time after time to see whether it was a place that could suit us. And I have to say, with the house and the nice people around, it is a place to be.
This property is on the market for 4.7 million rands. For your pickers, the sheer historic value of the property makes it far more valuable than its current market value.
My experience when I look through the property guides, the older properties, the historical monuments like this are relatively cheaper than a house comparing to the square meters that we have here. But let's say the additional value of the history of the house would make it invaluable.
The owners say living in Malmesbury offers them an incredible quality of life, not comparable elsewhere.
When you live in a rural area, on the countryside, you also have the quality of life and less crime. I have to say, we are living in the house now for more than 13 years, and I have to touch wood, we have never ever had a thing like a burglary or what else.
And good memories are a big part of this home.
One of the major memories is that my wife and I got married here in the house, and the marriage was done by Archbishop Tutu, who at the time that I worked for the TRC was the chairman of the TRC. That is a memory that we won't never forget.
The owners have decided to downsize because they would like to travel the world. And a 20-minute drive north of Malmesbury is the Riebeek Valley, a beautiful country area known for its vineyards, wheat fields and fruit orchards. The valley is also home to a number of Victorian homes dating back to the early 1900s. This house was built in 1902 and is currently the home of Jackie and Michael Solomon.
The Riebeek Valley is very different from Franschhoek and Stellenbosch in the sense that it is one of the small Cape country towns that still has integrity. It's not overflowing with tourists. There's a lot of architectural integrity in the village, and this particular house is probably one of the nicest houses in the valley. It was built in 1902. It belonged to one of the prominent families in the area. It was a townhouse. The area was originally and still is a farming area, but in those days, towards the end of the 19th century and into the 20th century, this was a farming centre, and so one would find that the important farmers would have their farms and they would have their townhouses as well. This house belonged to the Milan family, which is a prominent family in the valley, along with the Smutzes. You had the Smutzes, which is Jan Smutz's family, and the Milan's family, which is ironically, D.F. Malan's family and now the Alice Verleuren family. And this was a Malan family house and a very important house in its time.
For the Solomons, convenience is vital.
Why we came here, we didn't actually escape the city like many other people. We actually came down from a very remote area in Namaqualand and wanted to be outside of Cape Town but within striking distance of Cape Town, and that works for us as well. It's within an hour to the airport, it's within an hour to the waterfront, and so that one has the opportunity to enjoy an urban rural lifestyle at the same time being able to operate into the city.
What the owners paid and what they've managed to do with the property has provided them with incredibly good fortune.
Well, it's embarrassing to say what we actually paid for these properties a long time ago. But in 1997, when we arrived here, Riebeek hadn't been discovered, and the houses were ridiculously cheap, and one could buy, a house of this nature would have cost 2, 3, 4 times the amount of money that it did in Cape Town or in an urban environment. So we didn't pay much for the properties themselves, but as you can see what we've done to the properties in terms of the development of the garden, effectively putting together 5 different houses into a single garden and integrating the landscaping has worked very well. And so that really adds value just over and above the square footage of the properties themselves.
The single homestead Solomon home is currently on the market for 4 million rands. According to Gail Friedlander, buyers in the Victorian house market are very specific.
People either like or hate an old house. If they've lived in old houses, they generally speaking like old houses and will buy another one. Somebody who's come from a modern house in town is not likely to buy an older house. They're frightened of the maintenance and they really don't understand them, and they like more modern kitchens, more modern bathrooms. So generally speaking, it's a very specific market. I would say that Malmesbury is more difficult to sell than Riebeek. Riebeek actually sells itself. It's become very much of a destination for weekenders and for people to come and live. We've got a lot of entrepreneurs here who have their own businesses, and some of them commute to Cape Town once or twice a week. The owner of this house has constantly gone up and down the countryside to Johannesburg and also to other countries. So there's a lot of commuting that goes on from this area. We're only an hour from Cape Town.
But if you enjoy the history of a well-worn home, then the Riebeek Valley and Malmesbury area offer great finds in quaint rural settings not too far from the city.